Everybody, happy Friday. My name is Mark Mormon, Senior Vice President of Entrepreneurship and Venture Development at the Arizona Commerce Authority, and excited to be bringing today's session of the Arizona Small Business Bootcamp to all of you. Before we get started, I just wanted to thank all of our community partners across the state. We've been doing this for a few months now, and we could not have done this without the great partnership of the people listed on this page and many, many more. The Arizona Small Business Bootcamp is a daily boot camp aimed at supporting business owners for businesses with 20 or fewer employees to respond to, navigate, and return stronger from the COVID crisis. Like I said, it's a statewide initiative, so we've been working in partnership with lots of great local community groups and universities across the state, and it's daily. So we've been bringing new content every day, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. We started in April and excited to be bringing this content through the rest of this month. So if you're new to joining us, I'd encourage you to check out our website. I'll post in a moment. And we've got great content coming up through the rest of the month as well. So a few quick resources before we jump in. This is the website for the Small Business Bootcamp. Here you can register for future sessions, as well as watch all the recordings and view materials from past webinars. So this is a great repository of all the work that's been done over the past few months. Similarly, we've got a resource collective. And this is where we've aggregated all of the materials, resources, tools, reference guides from partners across the state. So I'd encourage you to check this out as well, because there's a lot of great information in there for your business. Want to cover next week's topics. Again, you can go to our website and register for these sessions. On Monday, we'll be talking about the power of effective employee engagement and how it can affect profit. On Tuesday, a marketing session on how to make every pitch count and delivering a consistent brand message. On Wednesday, we'll be talking about how to overcome obstacles in your business. Session 4 will be a PPP session about maximizing loan forgiveness and talking through that process. And then finally on Friday, a marketing session on how to produce your own videos. Some really great content, so I'd encourage you to go to our website and register for those. A quick update, the president did sign the PPP extension, and so applications will now be accepted through August 8th. There's still about $110 billion remaining in the program for small businesses. So if you haven't applied yet, there's lots of lenders around Arizona still writing loans for these. So I'd encourage you to get out there and find them before August 8th. Some quick plugs for other programs that you might find helpful. The ACA has partnered with the SBDC. There are chapters all over the state of Arizona, and they support small businesses through small business consulting, coaching, and other sort of resources, tools, and templates to help you run your business. We've also launched the Arizona at Work program, which is helping you kind of develop, train, and recruit your workforce. You can also go there for job or industry certifications. And finally, we've got the Arizona MEP program for manufacturers across the state, and they can support with helping you find customers, as well as low-cost business consulting. I'd also encourage you to check out the governor's website, arizonatogether.org. This is a great destination for all things COVID information, both for individuals and businesses, and is a good one-stop shop to kind of find out the latest. Here's some samples of the types of references in our resource collective. And so whether you're a restaurateur, a retailer, a hotelier, or manufacturer, we've got lots of great reference guides on how to reopen, how to bring in new customers, how to work with Google My Business. There's a ton of great information in there. I'd encourage you to check it out. And I'll post the links for these in our chat window. Finally, you should check out our website, azcommerce.com/COVID-19. This is a great stop for all the latest news and updates around COVID. I know we just kind of relaunched and updated this website with new information as well. And you can find out the latest here. Today, I am proud to be introducing Tim Kelly, a professor at Grand Canyon University. He teaches entrepreneurship and economics and is a huge part of their entrepreneurship program over at GCU. So with that, I'm happy to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Tim.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Let me share my screen here. Let's see if we, there we are, share. Are we looking at that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you to Mark and to the ACA for all the extraordinary work that they do that really does so much to help the small business community across the state. It's just a wonderful part to be to be a part of all of that. So what I suggested with Mark is that we cover two things today. One is essentially about employee engagement and essentially empowering your employees with the motivation to help you save money. So that's one big part. The other part that is a big passion of mine is the technological disruption that we are living. So I'll split it up into two topics mostly related to these two things, and I'll do a little brief bio on me here, kind of kicking off. So I've been an entrepreneur. I joked since I was 9 years old, and my parents cut me off and gave me a lawnmower. Was able to get 13 lawns and save money and pay for college. Since then, I've lived in 10 countries and 5 continents, traveled to nearly 40 countries. But I've built businesses in many of those countries. In Mexico, for example, built a construction and facilities management company. Been there working briefly for the government, got into finance for a while, ended up being recruited to start a construction management division for a large real estate conglomerate, built it up, and then they said, hey, we're shutting down our international division. Do you want to start your own? So I started my own. We grew it to a top 5 player in the market, doing construction management, facility management, and real estate throughout Mexico and Latin America for large multinationals, GE, Walmart, Costco, Carrefour, and multiple others. I've also started a cross-border mortgage bank. So I've been in finance. That turned out to be a massive explosion failure. Raised $100 million doing cross-border mortgage lending to Americans buying vacation properties in Mexico. And that just hit right into the entire mortgage crisis and blew up. Currently, I have been an angel investor. So when I sold my Mexican operation, the Construction Facilities Real Estate Group, after 14 years, I began angel investing. My wife and I also started a Spanish immersion preschool system, which we now have 4 of those across the valley, called Little Big Minds. We have about 65, 70 employees, assuming we open up here again in August. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the experiences related to that and the challenges, obviously. And we've gone through the whole PPP thing and layoffs and then recontracting and hoping to open up. And we're right in that little bated breath about what will the governor say about opening up our schools as we speak. As Mark mentioned, I'm a professor here at Grand Canyon University. It's a wonderful organization here with exponential growth. I head up the Department for Entrepreneurship. And imagine this, GCU has actually grown. Our enrollment for our August 24th start is up 24%. So this is just extraordinary. And perhaps while other universities may be taking hits and struggling, that's just our ground enrollment straight into the campus. So we'll be up over 23,000 students here, plus the 80,000 online, which continues to grow. Our entrepreneurship network, we've got over 17 professors and over 800 students in entrepreneurship studies. I also run our angel investor group here, which we call Canyon Angels. And I've been doing this for over a decade between a private equity fund, Thunderbird Angels, now Canyon Angels. We've invested in just over 30 companies in the last essentially 3.5 years. Just over $3 million, about $3.5 million total funds invested so far. We love those companies that have some exponential tech possibility for growth. I've also been a central bank advisor, actually in Africa, to the Central Bank of Angola. Having become an expert in all ways to fail in cross-border mortgages, the government calls you an expert. And so I became a central bank advisor. You get a call. One of the languages I speak is Portuguese and Spanish. And so speaking Portuguese and failing in every possible way in international mortgages, you get a call from the government and they say, hey, why don't you go speak with our wonderful friends in Angola, Africa, about ways in which they can create mortgage finance structures and provide home loans for people that may want to buy properties there, which was a new concept after the communists that won the Angolan Civil War. They said there's no money in communism. Maybe if people can start to buy homes, there might be some wealth accumulation. So I got to do that for a while. Father, husband as well, and native Phoenician. So let's see here. Here's the reality. The future of markets are unknown. We cannot predict the future, and we can see with this particular crisis, this is unprecedented, just the raw speed with which it has forced us into a massive start and stop. It's unprecedented. So the question becomes, how do we prepare our organizations to solve what are even unknown problems, rather than dedicate ourselves to serving shrinking markets or ever-changing markets? And then how do we even do that for ourselves as individual entrepreneurs? Some of the key things that I like to talk about is the engagement with employees. We know that they are the most valuable asset that any organization has. Yet so often, how is it that we can bring about an atmosphere of, I say, radical transparency? Even as small business owners, we've got, like I mentioned, we've currently got about 65, 70 employees. If you're under 20 employees, if you're under 5 employees, sometimes it's easier to manage that transparency. It's critical because most employees, they see how much money the organization takes in, but they don't see all of the expenses and risks associated with being that organization's creator, founder, and what we might say CEO or owner. It's critical. If they can see what that risk represents, then it enables them to, first and foremost, it takes the CEO, the founder, off the pedestal and brings that CEO down to the ground level where that risk that the employees begin to see gives them, it actually empowers them. It says, okay, I understand that, yes, they may be making X profit. They may also be making X loss. They may have that personal guarantee on the mortgage for the office space or the factory floor that we've got or the equipment that we've got. What does that mean? Because in this moment like this, where revenue can go to a complete halt, you might have to default on that mortgage. And that might mean that you lose your home. That radical transparency of sharing that risk with your employees can be empowering. It helps them understand that the revenue coming in and the risks that you take actually are part of the core, the heart, the vision of the organization. It impassions them. You don't necessarily want them to co-sign on the mortgage with you, but having them understand what those risks really are, it's a challenge. I know. I've been doing this for decades. I've had hundreds of employees. It is sometimes extremely difficult as well when you have disparity about how much each employee makes compared to others. And while that radical transparency can be an empowering thing, the last thing you want to create as well is conflict within your organization. How you do it is delicate. How you work with your employees to understand that maybe there is some disparity in the income that each individual is earning. I tend to have a law on compensation, and that how much compensation you make as an individual is directly related to the number of people you serve and the degree to which you serve them. How well do you serve them? And that's kind of a go-giver philosophy, but to have your employees understand that can be a critical piece. So show them the story, how you founded it, how you built it, what those risks are that you took on. Share the vision of the problem you solve. Every organization solves a problem. I mentioned the Spanish immersion preschools that we solve. We say give your children the gift of bilingualism. It's a fantastic, empowering tool for young ones 2 to 5 years old to build that cognitive capacity of a multilingual, multicultural view of the world. And our employees, our teachers are impassioned about sharing their life experiences, and we give them a platform to do that. My motto for my construction company, we provide transparency, because obviously building in certain environments in Latin America, Transparency is complicated, and for multinationals, the risks were enormous. And so we would make your enterprise audit bulletproof. We bring transparency to that construction process, and to the real estate search process, and to your facility management process. And those are missions that are really cultural transformations. They're visions that people buy into. And partly because of that, the dedication, the engagement and passion of the employees can be tapped into, even when times are tough, especially when times are tough. An amazing example of this is an organization like Tesla, that now is the most valuable auto/energy company in the world. And they just passed Toyota, 250 billion in valuation. Granted, they make a fraction of the vehicles, but what he has been able to do of empowering his employees, same with SpaceX, is off the charts. It's like a cult to be a part of an Elon Musk organization. They see those major challenges that are ahead, and they're empowered to help go challenge them. So to what degree do you empower each employee to be responsible for the entire organization? That radical transparency, that buy-in. Increasingly, organizations are horizontal. They're not the vertical structures that were the 1950s to 70s management books. It's not that anymore. Each employee comes in more educated, with more information at their fingertips, empowering them to solve problems directly for your customers. And so while you need organization and you need to have manuals of operation and guidelines and training for your people, empowering them, they have more tools than any other employees at any other time in all of human history. Take advantage of that. Right? And then finally, how do you prepare your entire organization, you mentally, strategically, and your employees mentally and strategically, for the coming tech disruption? So this is a slide here. It's basically a 150-year history of where people have worked in which sector. So clearly, back in the 1840s there, you can see that about 70% of the population actually still worked on farms. By the way, that's when our education system was designed. We built our school systems with siloed subjects and an academic calendar that has to correlate with a harvest season, with its 2 to 3 to 4 months off. Nonetheless, we're still stuck with that system, and maybe that is also in a radical change right now. But what we can see is that the population working in services, that's us serving one another, whether these are entertainment to restaurants, to legal services, to accounting services, to management services, to marketing services, to design services. All of these things are ways in which we serve one another that didn't exist before. We have invented new ways to serve one another. And right now we are in the middle of doing that at a massive scale because of the magnitude of this specific disruption. When we lay 40 million people off overnight, and then we look at the problems in the world and we say, there's a lot of people with a lot of free time and a lot of money floating around the planet to go after solving those problems in new ways. And we are in the middle of that right now. What does this mean? What's powering this? And there's a linear thought process that's natural in us as humans. This is what we do. We look and we saw the tigers running across the plains of Africa, and we knew that if the tiger was going there, I would be eaten if I went that way. That's a linear calculation. We are not naturally inclined to think about the exponential impact, and so it becomes a surprise factor. We get literally shocked when all of a sudden a new technology like an iPhone comes on, which is now 12 years old. Believe it or not, our mobile devices with the smart screen integrated with apps is 12 years old. That's nothing, yet its impact across the planet is extraordinary. It is exponential. That mobile piece is just one instance of the multitude of different technologies that are also being empowered exponentially. They're bringing big data, new information in, the ability to compute on the cloud with magnitudes of server capacity didn't exist just a year ago, 2 years ago. Things like Zoom that we are using right now was bandwidth impossible a decade ago. Now our processors can handle this, and it's getting faster and faster. 5G is coming online. Satellite-based internet, Elon Musk just launched another batch of 50 satellites. That's now 400, I believe, out of a 12,000 active network of internet-based satellite covering the entire planet. It's going to launch in North America probably before the end of this year. We'll see. That's extraordinary. Nanotechnology, cognitive systems, 3D printing. When you get robotics and 3D printing and 5G connectivity, it's unbelievable what can happen. It will be a revolution, changing things about every aspect of our life. And because it's exponential, it will literally pop, that we won't even see it coming. It'll be like, oh, wow, now there's this new autonomous vehicle. Elon Musk announced literally yesterday or last week that they are getting very close to level 5 autonomy. That means that all of his vehicle fleet, the 500,000 Teslas out there with their autopilot and their connectivity, by the way, they're the only automobile that's actually fully connected. So they are learning. Every time a human is driving one of those vehicles, it's training the artificial intelligence. It's a narrow artificial intelligence for vehicle autonomy. They are training it on how to react. Well, it's learning. The hardware is already there. They are learning. They are just one of a multitude of companies that are building these platforms for autonomy. That will change dramatically so much of what we do. Blockchain technologies can be extraordinary disruptive forces in the services, from even ride sharing to insurance to banking. It will be fascinating. I want you to think of these things because your business is going to need to adapt to these, and they're tools that you can actually integrate up front as they are rolling off into your own service area so that you are among the first to adopt them rather than being disrupted by them. This is all based on something called Moore's Law. And some of you maybe are techies and have heard this. Gordon Moore was one of the co-founders of Intel. Back in '65, he said, it looks like we're doubling the number of these little transistors on a silicon wafer every 12 to 24 months. And now we call it Moore's Law. It is not a law of physics, but it is a trend line that actually started long before this, arguably with the advent of language itself, that has a constant doubling that is accelerating. And it's our ability to process information. This is not slowing down. This is getting faster and faster. I just put a few things on here, links to quantum computing. This is an extraordinary leap in computing capacity for specific mathematical modeling that can incredibly advance materials. Even weather forecasting, financial forecasting can be some unbelievable tools at our fingertips. That tied with AI and robotics is extraordinary. What does it look like here? These are going back. Gordon Moore wrote his little paper about here. By the way, I stole this from a guy named Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis. One of the benefits of being a professor is that I actually get to research and be part of organizations that focus on finding these points of convergence between technologies and how they're going to trigger disruptions. And this is just tracking. These are individual literal processors, data points, when we now know what is the ability to process information. We're about up here now. And it goes all the way back to other forms of data management. These are the actual chips that have been built. The NVIDIA, that one's actually already like 3.5 years old on this particular chart here. You've got multitude of new chips that are already significantly faster. This is what it looks like on a linear scale when you're literally, these are billions of calculations per second per dollar. And look, it appears flat almost the entire period there, but then it just leaps forward and we go from just being able to manage less than 1 gigaflop to 5 gigaflops in a matter of years. Boom. And what does it look like next? Well, we're getting real close to 2028. It's coming up faster than we'd like to think, but now it's 200 gigaflops. That exponential convergence will enable so much. We need to think about it about every one of our businesses. This is the disruption framework that we look at. Once something becomes digitized, and we are in the midst of that digitization, everything is dropping onto a digital framework. When we see vehicles move to autonomy, when we see robotic manufacturing, when we see artificial intelligence step into our smart banking, our virtual assistants, from insurance, automated insurance constructs through blockchain, all of these different things are essentially services that we provide to one another that we are dropping onto a digital framework. First, we think it's deceptive. Oh, it'll never happen. My wife still makes fun of me thinking that I'm going to have a car that's going to drive itself. And because I already installed the electric charger thing in my garage. I'm like, baby, it's coming, it's coming. And she says, sure, sure. Well, we're going to see it, and we're going to see it soon. In a matter of years, these things are rolling out. It's deceptive at first, and it's disruptive, then it dematerializes. The cost of transportation now becomes a fraction of what current vehicle ownership is. How do we prepare for that? Demonetizes, and then it becomes accessible to virtually everyone. We call this a hype cycle, kind of peak of inflated expectations, trough of disillusionment. Right now, we're somewhere down here in the trough of disillusionment on vehicle autonomy. We're going to see. You can see these things charted out here. There's a group called Gartner that tracks all these different technologies merging together. You see blockchain right about here. Blockchain, for those of you who don't know, is a technology that's been popularized by Bitcoin. And that Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency structure. It allows for non-duplicated transactions to occur on the internet. So it's a fascinating enabling technology that can in fact democratize so many things, including government itself. So then autonomous connected homes, autonomous driving. Here's 5G. This is from 2018, right? 2 years ago. Where's 5G now? 5G is already rolling out. We're about here on 5G. Yeah. This is 2019. Now we're 2020. 5G is right here. It's rolling out. The new phones that you're going to buy in the next few months are going to be 5G enabled. And just as an example, our antennas are already laid out entirely across the Grand Canyon University campus. They put them in all over the past few months, and we are ready to roll. Autonomous driving level 4, still moving forward. We'll see where these come out. The point being is that each one of these things causes disruption. How are you going to prepare your organization to understand, number one, to empower your employees, because they are the greatest resource. They're the ones on the front lines working with the problems that your customers have. What can be done so that you are thinking in this mindset and that they are thinking in this mindset, particularly when markets are shrinking? This is when disruption occurs. This is when those new paradigms of the way in which you're going to offer your service, this is when they occur. As an example, encyclopedias. I have a great collection of beautiful encyclopedias that look just like this, gold leaf and everything. This used to cost $1,000. Nobody uses encyclopedias anymore. They're all entirely outdated, have been demonetized, and now are on this thing with everyone, everywhere, pretty much on the planet. This is a photograph of how phone calls were once patched together. It's a giant patch panel with human operators that would literally pick up, when you pick up your phone, it would connect to one of these people. They would say, where would you like to speak? And then they would connect you to the next link. And then that link would connect you to the next one. If you were calling across the country or across the continent, for example, or into another country, across the Atlantic, it was humans connecting that across the entire way. That cost an enormous amount of money. Now, anybody who has WhatsApp or Skype, you're doing free video calls anywhere on the planet. My wife is from Colombia. Her family is scattered across easily 10 different countries all over the world, and they'll have video chats, and it's absolutely fascinating. It's free. The classic example is you do not want to be a Kodak. You do not want to be the company that invents the digital camera, which they did. Their board 4 times rejected embracing the digital format. They said, no, we're in the paper and chemicals company, in the business of providing paper and chemicals. That's what they said, which when, what's his name, Eastman founded that company 100 years ago, what he enabled was the ability for people to share memories. That's why the business took off. Because before that, the only way you would have images, there existed cameras, but the process of developing film was so arduous. Kodak made that easy. Kodak systematized it, and then they scaled it around the planet to become one of the key companies in the world. And they ignored their own disruptive technology. Another, obviously, organization came out. Digital cameras exploded across the planet. And at the same time that a little company called Instagram was bought up for $1 billion, by the way, which was really cheap. Facebook got a steal. It's probably worth $25 billion. So Zuckerberg was really smart in buying it up for $1 billion, but the company had only been in existence for 18 months. It had 14 employees. That same year, Kodak declares bankruptcy, lays off tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees, and still is struggling to try to find some foundation of a new business model. It's about their business model. This is why I say share the vision of your business with your employees, because that's everything. What problem do you solve? Because the way in which you solve it is going to change. Don't be Kodak. You want to be that dynamic organization that constantly innovates the new way in which you solve your customers' problems. Do it better, cheaper, faster, and you will survive. Obviously, as these things continue, they get dematerialized and spread across the planet. But an interesting thing about this, and I'll kind of wrap up around here, how long does it take for these technologies to come into play? And I cited the example of the smartphone being just 12 years old. Here are a couple of photographs that maybe some of you have seen, but it's Easter Sunday on 5th Avenue, New York City. And Easter morning, 1900, on the left, what you'll notice is that there are all horse and buggies. Manhattan was covered with horses and buggies. And in fact, at the turn of the century, even a meeting of great minds and technologists and all these other political leaders got together and said, what will be the future of Manhattan? How much can it grow? And their conclusion unanimously was that it cannot continue to grow because it would be drowning in manure. That the horses, there was no place to put the manure. Well, lo and behold, new technology comes about, and just 13 years later, you see the photograph on the right of this same street, 5th Avenue, New York City. I think there's a horse in there somewhere. I can't even see it, but it's all vehicles. So if 100 years ago, the adoption scale, like the ability for humans to adapt a new technology that's better, once it becomes cost effective, boom, we switch fast. The example of this 100 years ago, the example of a smartphone today, and the example of what we're going to see with new technologies rolling out is mind-boggling. We are not inherently able to process it. So changing our mindset to think about the exponential tools that are available and how we can solve our customers' problems, how we can engage our employees to solve those problems, will be the tools that enable us to survive and expand and scale in new ways. Probably pretty dramatic there across all the different tools that exist. But with that, I think I will wrap it up and say thank you all so much. And I'm available for any questions you might have. I'm happy to share my email. And if anyone would like to reach out or learn more about what we do here at GCU or Canyon Angels, or have their child put into a Spanish immersion preschool, happy to talk with anyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. Really interesting session. For those on the line, if you do have any questions for Tim, feel free to throw it in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen or in the chat window. But in the meantime, Tim, I'd love to hear your perspective on how small business owners can kind of take these ideas around disruption and big innovations that are happening around us, like 5G and blockchain. And over time, and might be a short amount of time, that sort of diffuses into how small businesses operate or how it impacts them, whether it's through an AI chatbot that they can put on their site or automated registration things. And so I'm wondering, as kind of a small business owner yourself, how should they be thinking about taking these big disruptive ideas, but how can they actually either take advantage of those ideas and implement them in very actionable ways, or how can they stay on top of some of these trends that you're alluding to so that they don't get caught on their back foot?
Right. And every business is different, and every market is different, and every customer relationship is different. But some examples for us, for example. So we used to print up the parent manuals for our preschools, and printing them off cost us thousands of dollars. And we served 400 families, and it's a significant cost. Well, now everything is digital. Everything is put so that the parents can simply access them on their iPads, on their phone at any time. The formats have simply changed so that they're much more accessible from a mobile format. Our registration process, same kind of thing. We've in fact developed a whole new software so that all of our teachers manage the curriculum across every one of our age groups in classrooms on a consistent basis. And we built that software because there was no other education platform for preschools that existed. So we had to build it in-house in order to be able to maintain the consistent quality across what we're actually distributing out to the students and reporting back to the parents, and be able to grow the organization. So that's another example. It optimized our training process so that we were able to spend less time training the teachers because they had everything embedded in a digital format right at their fingertips on their mobile device or the iPads in each of the classrooms. That makes our organization more efficient, more nimble, makes it easier for us to expand, to open up new campuses, because our infrastructure is set into a digital platform, which means all the mechanical and time that would have been an administrative expense. Our organization is very horizontal. Our teachers are empowered directly to communicate with the parents, and our directors are essentially, through a servant leadership model, empowering the teachers to do what they do best by embracing the students and sharing those results with the parents on that daily basis. So those are just some examples for that particular experience of our business, but there are so many. We're seeing it in education up at the university level. One of the reasons why I think Grand Canyon has been so successful and now growing in this moment of crisis, where other perhaps more traditional brick and mortar universities have struggled to go online, is that GCU has built its entire academic curriculum on a digital format to deliver multimodal. So for us, midstream to go into a digital platform, we didn't really have to change anything. Everybody was already there. We went to a Zoom, but every test, for the most part, there's exceptions, but every project, every content delivery is all embedded in our digital format. So being nimble from a technological standpoint, I think, at least in education, those are two examples where I think you see that it leads to an advantage in a competitive environment rather than a disruption.
Yeah, those are great examples. We have a few requests. If you wouldn't mind putting your email address in the chat window for panelists,
Sure.
Excuse me, for the audience, I think that would be helpful. We've got some people excited to reach out to you.
Okay, let me escape out of this and see where that chat window is. Why is it not popping up?
Or here, Tim, I can put it in there for you. I have your, do you mind if I give them your GCU?
Yeah, that's the perfect one. Oh, here it is. Okay, I got it. Oh, that went privately to Lisa. Sorry.
And then after you put that in there, there's a question in the box around, have you noticed any network effects or impacts that cyber currencies or cryptocurrencies are having on small businesses? So is Bitcoin starting to kind of trickle down from investor level into kind of small businesses?
I wish. So at the small level, I haven't seen it yet. Digital payments, I see rapidly coming in play. Obviously, platforms like Zelle and PayPal and multitude of others. That's kind of the incremental step from an American standpoint. China is already fully in digital payments. Will they make that leap into a crypto structure? And here's the dichotomy that we're facing literally in the technological revolution of our planet today. China is a top-down tyrannical technological model. The United States tends to be in a diversified, democratized technological platform. Bitcoin is an example of a democratized platform. It's not tyrannical. There is no owner of it. There is no government that is controlling it. If we are moving to that, which I hope we will move into that, but a trigger where you would see a cryptocurrency, the tragedy so far on the crypto model has been that we don't have the bandwidth and the computing capacity for the billions of transactions per minute that occur. And when we make that leap, and it's a question of bandwidth, literally, 5G will probably enable a big percentage of it. Maybe 2 more generations of chips will enable it. Some software redesigns, there's some new code structures that are coming out on the crypto side that are enabling massive amounts of transactions to occur simultaneously. We're not there yet, but I think that we will begin to see applications of it, literally bypassing modern government-sponsored currencies within a question of years. I don't know. We'll also see what the actions are of central banks. Right now, obviously, governments have a very big vested interest in controlling the currencies of their environment. So there's going to be a battle. It's probably not going to be a pretty one. And we're going to see how we just created $6 trillion of stimulus in the last 4 months. What is that going to mean? We're in uncalculable territory. So it's a great question. It's fascinating. I'd be preparing for it. When that trigger is going to happen as a small business, I don't know. Yeah, I'd keep it on my radar.
Tim, what I've kind of seen or heard is a future, whether that's 1 year down the road or 4 years down the road, of just kind of, it's a payment option, right? You've got a digital wallet and you can use your credit card or you can use kind of your Bitcoin amount, and small businesses might have payment processors that can accept either. Yep. And so how that might impact small businesses is that customers might be paying with digital currencies in a way for kind of everyday items. Imagine going through a McDonald's and using your Bitcoin to kind of buy a Big Mac. It's not happening today, but it's certainly something that, depending on kind of central banking's response to this, could become an everyday use of funding to purchase things.
And the technology, as I said, is almost there. I think we're going to start to see some platforms roll out probably within a matter of months that would enable something like this. But you're dead on in saying it's actually more of a regulatory hurdle. What is the IRS going to say? Because right now they treat Bitcoin like they treat gold, physical gold. You're dealing with changes in fluctuation that have tax consequences of it, as if you were a currency speculator. And that's how do you report it? That's governments aren't necessarily happy with that alternative.
And I think the follow-up question to that is around transaction costs and how that might impact. And I don't know if you want to speak to that.
I would love to, yeah. Because it can essentially be, Bitcoin is essentially an autonomous platform, right? It generates its own security through the mining process, but there's no transaction fees on top of it. So it reduces the friction to practically zero. That means your bank, your Visa fee card, your American Express, those become obsolete. And you can bypass that system entirely with your digital wallet. So yeah, there's for business owners, it's awesome. We actually stop losing 2 to 4% of our revenue in banking fees.
Tim, you touched on something interesting that I wanted to follow up on that I think might be relevant for small business owners. And that's kind of, it's kind of, you said you built some platforms in-house, and not everyone might be able to do that, but there is this sense of kind of using technology to replace processes or systems to become more efficient. And then you also mentioned the kind of cost structure impacts of that, of kind of moving costs from sort of these maybe variable one-off depending on flow into a more smoothly spread out cost that kind of handles things more efficiently. Can you talk about how business owners might think about sourcing technology, the cost implications of that, to maybe make some of their processes more efficient? I think the digital curriculum was a great example. I know there's a ton of restaurants out there, maybe some owners on this call who for the first time are putting their menus online, are going to an online kind of delivery or order service. And so how can people who maybe don't have the personnel to develop things in-house still take advantage of that technology?
So it can be a black hole. I've screwed it up 2 of the 3 times that I've attempted to do it in-house. The first time was trying to develop a project management tracking software for our construction management firm. That was in the dot-com boom, late 90s. And I dropped hundreds of thousands of dollars building this project tracking system to report back to our multinational companies with real-time updates and all that. I felt really sophisticated. I built it on a platform that was obsolete by the time that I got done with it, and it was weighted and totally wasted. So you can screw it up, tragically. In the case of what we've done with the preschools, it's been a long process, and it's taken us over 5, this is now 6 years in an incremental development, where we had originally thought that we would build it as a spin-off business. We moved away from that and began to build minimum viable products from an internal standpoint that would say, what can we, and we used a third-party developer group to do it. And we paid out of cash flow rather than raising money or going in debt to do it. And each time we added a little piece to it, it was with the advice of a good developer group. It's a small shop, but they're good guys, and they develop most of it in-house with some help from some of their own outsourced teams. But you're talking in the tens to $100,000 range with those incremental buildups. But knowing what process you can actually put into that digital platform is the critical part. What your process flows are, and isolating what you think can add the most value to your organization and build it one off at a time is probably a better way to go. Also, these costs are getting cheaper and cheaper. Building apps, there are now automated platforms assisted by artificial intelligence to actually help you build it. So it's getting easier, I think. Code is becoming a little more widely able to be shared, where it used to be a black box. You got to have the programmer. Yes, you still need them, but I think so much of what is out there is the code is already built. It's about moving it into the right flows to solve your specific problem.
Yeah, and just to kind of put an example to that, I know one company here in Arizona, they have created sort of a digital assistant for your online website. So it's kind of an AI-powered chat. Oh, yeah. And all they do is they kind of, once you kind of contract with them, they give you basically a line of code to add to your website. And that line of code turns into this digital assistant. And you're paying, like you said, it's getting cheaper. Maybe it's $40, $50 a month to have that on your platform that kind of can engage with customers on your behalf.
I think you're talking about the GCU alums that are building that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. The Stroke brothers.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of, even if you're not out there developing it or not sure where to start, there's pieces that you can go out there and find of these different things and say, that would be beneficial. It's $40 a month, and that would reduce my costs because then I don't need to spend time or energy kind of always having someone man the phones. Or I spend 12 hours a month doing my books, but here's this kind of quick software that I've done that makes me only need to spend an hour of my time doing that, and that's only $25 a month. And so I think that there's a lot of, you should be looking, I would recommend looking at your business and where those costs are, or where a lot of time is spent, where a lot of manual effort, things aren't as efficient. There's likely some sort of innovation that's been created to help make that smoother and less expensive.
Yeah, very true. In fact, the chatbot can optimize your sales process. If you're training an individual to answer specific questions, often that can already be embedded into this narrow AI of a chatbot, so that your leads that actually do get to the human, they're essentially qualified through the AI and come to you for that closing human interaction.
So Tim, we've got a few minutes left. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box or the Q&A. But Tim, I'd love to kind of wrap up with your thoughts on kind of bringing it all together. We're in a time of great disruption, which typically correlates to a time of great innovation.
Yeah.
And so how should businesses be thinking about adapting and taking advantage of innovation to kind of not just navigate this disruption, but to be able to kind of really thrive through it, or to kind of find new ways of doing business or new technologies to help them do this, so that they're really leaping forward through a time of disruption?
Well, because each business is different, and regulation and licensing has massive impact on how these things change. I'd suggest to everyone that it be a mindset that where the opportunities are, how your business from a process flow, which pieces can begin to be automated or optimized to provide greater value to your customers at a lower cost to your organization. I'd start there. And number one. Number two is I'd look at a macro scale of the problem that you're solving for your customer. And I'd say, what other markets exist around the planet that I might be able to tap into, where through technology, I can access other individuals, other people around the planet, and enable them through all of our different mechanisms to solve the problem that I solve here locally for this group. I can do it now somewhere else as well. And I would desperately look at that, because you're looking at a population of nearly 8 billion people around the planet. About 4.5 billion of those people are connected through mobile devices, and they are rapidly coming online. We will likely have all 8 billion online within the next 5 years. It's that fast. And within that framework, that means you've got 3 billion more minds to tap into, to offer your services to, if you want to be a billionaire, sell something to 1 billion people. Solve a problem for 1 billion people.
Cool. Well, a great note to end things on. Thank you, Tim. No, I'm jazzed about it. I think that it's going to be an exciting couple of years, and who knows what's to come.
This is going to be the most exciting decade in all of human history, without a doubt. And starting in the middle of a pandemic, 2020 just really sucks. I hear it, but my God, what we will bring as humans to the planet, I think, is extraordinary.
Well, I love the optimism, and I share the excitement. So Tim, I want to take one more opportunity to thank you for coming on today. Always a pleasure to work with you in GCU and hear about kind of innovation and what the future holds. And to our participants, again, I'd encourage you to log on to our bootcamp website. I'll post it one more time in the chat to register for next week's sessions. And again, you can view all of our past webinars. They're recorded with the materials. These will be up on the website in just a few hours as well. And look forward to seeing you all again at a future session.
Thank you all. Cheers.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Lisa.